Hello and welcome to the CNN Newsroom. In tonight's top story, addiction, medical issue or moral defect. Many believe that it is a disease, as attested by Dr. Nicole Henderson and Dr. William Dressler. However, research by Dr. Lee Frank and Dr. Saskia Nagel suggests that the answer is far more complex. Our correspondents, Kim and Maja, take a deeper dive into the differing perspectives on addiction causation.
University, a period often associated with fostering independence, academic progression, and personal exploration. However, it is also a unique opportunity for some to experiment with things that their parents warned against, like alcohol, cigarettes, and drugs. With a more stressful course load and a new environment that almost encourages drinking at social and sporting events, it is no surprise that undergraduate students are particularly at risk for developing a substance addiction, with 20% of students meeting the diagnostic criteria. This is despite having been intensely targeted by anti-drug education programs like DARE. Unfortunately, only 3.9% of this population receives treatment due to a lack of resources or stigmatization against seeking help. In 2015, researchers at the Department of Anthropology at the University of Alabama set out to establish 1. An overall consensus or cultural model on the most significant causes of substance use disorder within the culture of students. 2. The influence that cultural model has on how stigma is attributed to those with substance use disorder. And 3. How different subgroups of that culture deviate from the established consensus or residual agreement. They had hoped that gaining insight into these topics would help in reforming current anti-drug education programs, which may or may not be contributing to stigmatization. The research unfolded in 3 phases featuring undergraduate students aged 18 to 25 years old. In phase 1, 39 students were asked to pinpoint what they considered the most significant causes of addiction. This yielded a list of 28 terms, ranging from genetics, peer pressure, or boredom. In phase 2, a different group of 38 students were asked to engage in a sorting exercise with terms from the previous phase printed on 28 index cards. They were asked to group these terms based on similarity with one another. This resulted in the identification of 5 distinct categories of addiction causation, including biological, self-medication, hedonistic, social, and familial factors. Finally, in phase 3, a larger sample of 212 undergraduate students were asked to indicate the significance of each cause of addiction on a scale of 0 to 3. With 0 being no influence and 3 being very influential. Participants were also asked to rate their agreement with various statements on those with substance abuse disorder on a scale of strongly disagree to strongly agree. This would allow researchers to gauge the level of stigma each individual respondent would attribute towards substance use disorder. During the final round of interviews, researchers identified 2 distinct cultural models regarding addiction causation. The dominant perspective was the medical model, with a significant portion of the population attributing causes of addiction primarily to biological and medical factors. However, a noteworthy minority opposed this view, advocating instead for the moral model, which emphasizes social and hedonistic influences on addiction. Notably, respondents in this subgroup were shown to attribute higher levels of stigma compared to those who subscribed to the medical model, as indicated by the agreement scale. The overall consensus agreeing with the medical model reflects the modern-day movement away from the criminalization of drug users and toward a medical view of addiction. However, it is critical to recognize that many drug education programs aimed at curbing drug use among children and teenagers continue to uphold the moral model. This signifies a pressing need for reforms in drug education, emphasizing that substance use disorders should be perceived as not a moral failing, but an illness that requires appropriate treatment, much like any other health condition.
While the overall cultural consensus at University of Alabama sees addiction as a disease, not everyone remains convinced it can explain all of addictive behavior. Researcher Gene Heyman noted that the most addicts never answer treatment, yet the majority do overcome addiction on their own, contradicting the medical model. Critics of the medical model also argue that it has its own form of stigmatization. They argue that calling addiction a disease prevents a development of self-control and self-esteem. In 2017, researchers at University of Twente wanted to reevaluate the medical model of addiction by reviewing 3 alternative models by Owen Flanagan, Nell Levy, and Mark Levis. These models acknowledge addiction biological aspects but assert that these are only part of the bigger picture. Owen Flanagan describes addiction as a twin normative failure. By this, he means, at its core, addiction is a result of 2 issues. First, the individual's loss of self-control over substance use, leading to a breakdown in willpower and rationalizations about their addiction. Second, the shame felt for not living up to personal values and standards for a fulfilling life. In a sense, addiction is a normative disorder rather than a purely biological one. Arising at the personal level, addicted people are responsible for their condition, but that does not mean they are entirely to blame. While shame is a key motivator for recovery in this module, it can also hamper their ability to serve as their own advocates. Neil Levy that addiction should be viewed as a disorder of belief rather than a brain disease. Initially, individuals struggling with addiction are rational, believing it's in their best interest to abstain from drug use. However, this idea changes drastically when they find themselves in an environment of drugs, believing that it wouldn't hurt to use in this one occasion. This shift in judgment is reinforced by the dopamine system, which has been conditioned to reward pleasure-seeking behaviors. As a result, the addict's belief systems becomes hijacked, distorting rational thinking into delusional justification for substance use. Ultimately, addicts to lack control, but not over bodily functions, as in disease. Rather, they struggle with a belief system that fails to resist the adjustment shifts induced by drugs and reinforced by dopamine. They can choose to say no, but may find it harder in certain environments where drugs are familiar, leading to a tendency to say yes instead. For Mark Levis, addiction is an extreme outcome of a normal functioning brain that seeks relief in times of distress. Normally, relief would come in the form of sweet treat or meditation. In addiction, the brain was learned to turn to drugs as a comfort due to repeated habitual behavior. According to Levis, much like any other ingrained habit, addiction can be unlearned by forgiving stronger synaptic pathways via better habits. As a result, although these three modules don't classify addiction as a disease, they don't solemnly blame addicts for their action either. They recognize that these individuals still have choices, yet not all choices are equal. For whatever reason, addicts have diminished response to reason, often making their choice in addiction with a irrational mindset. Adapting modules that incorporate both biological elements and personal accountability can pave the way for more effective treatment strategies. Addicted individuals are neither immortal or completely powerless, but rather human beings faced a complicated struggle.
Academic perspectives on addiction are diverse and often conflicting. What does the general public say? Joining us live are correspondents Dorian and Matias, interviewing professionals and neighbors alike.
Okay, so when you hear the word addiction, do you see it as a disease or a personal choice, and why?
Both. I have to remember what I said the first time. Both. I think it's both. It could be a disease and a choice. Just depends on the situation. I can make it a choice if I really wanted to, but I mean, it can also come as a disease.
Yeah. College is often associated with partying and drinking. Do you think that an environment like that can increase the risk of substance?
Yes, absolutely. Whenever you're in that kind of environment, it's very easy to fall into it. I know that, like I said, but like I am a year sober, but I can't associate with situations like that anymore because it's very easy to fall back into it. Not so much with like alcohol, but if like drugs are involved, it's very easy to be like, oh yeah, I'll just take a hit or whatever, real quick.
Yeah. So let's say that you're a teacher and that one of your students is struggling with substance addiction. How do you think that other students would treat him or her?
You could be very judgmental when it comes to that. I know, being a female and not drinking, I've drank for a long time, and I used to be the life of the party, and everybody's like Mr. like social butterfly. And when I quit drinking, everybody wants to know why. Like, are you pregnant or what's wrong? Or they're very judgmental when it comes. Like, the answers never really matter. They just want to know, like, why aren't you being the life of the party? Why don't you do something stupid so we can talk about it tomorrow? They can be very judgmental, or they don't want to drink around you, and then it makes you feel awkward because I'm not cool anymore.
Yeah. Research has shown that substance addiction is viewed more negatively than mental or behavioral disorders like anxiety or depression. Why do you think that is? That could be.
It goes hand in hand. I don't know if it's judged more so, but it goes hand in hand. Like, alcohol is a depressant. Drugs are very much a depressant. Not so much when you're on them, but when you come off of them, sends you in a downward spiral. You can ask any drug addict that says that when you're coming off of a drug, it sends you into a deep depression real quick. It makes your mind go and not shut off.
Do you agree that many young adults avoid seeking help for substance addiction, and why do you think so?
It shows weakness. I think that they do. They don't want to seek help because you don't want to be that statistic when it comes to that kind of situation. So I do think it shows weakness. It takes a lot for somebody. That's the first step when you know you have a problem. But you have to get to that problem first. A lot of people don't think, like, I work really hard and I'm a boss and I do a lot of like people wouldn't even know that I have a problem. So I'm a very functioning alcoholic or functioning like drug addict. So it takes a lot for somebody to say, oh, hey, I have a problem.
Finally, do you believe that the way schools teach students about drugs can reduce stigma, or does it just make them feel ashamed to seek help?
I think that they sugarcoat it enough to where, like I said, it shows weakness. I think that if you have real people out there to teach the situation, I said then it might not be as ashamed, because I have people that I look up to that have come out and said that I think that these people are like on top of the world. And then when they say that, oh, hey, they're just like me, then it's a little bit different. But if you have some like Miss So-and-so that has no idea anything, then no, I don't want to come out and say I have a problem.
Yeah, so those are all my questions. Thank you for answering them.
No, yeah, you're welcome. No problem.
Hi, my name is Matias, and today I will interview Nolan Steele.
Hi.
Okay, today we're gonna talk about drug addiction. So, are you ready for this?
Yes.
Okay. So, first question is, how much responsibility do you think individuals have over their addictive behaviors?
I think people have a good bit of responsibility for their addictions because they did start it themselves unless like in very special cases, but overall it's usually on them to get on it and to get off it.
Do you believe environment plays a major role in addiction? In what ways?
I think environment, as in like where you grow up, definitely plays a role, because if all you know is addiction, then that's what you'll go back to when something bad happens. So your environment plays, I'd say, a very big role in that.
Okay. Fifth question. What do you think is harder to change? A belief, a habit, or a biological impulse in a person with addiction?
A belief, a habit, or a biological impulse. I think definitely between a biological impulse or a belief, because a belief is something that you've like completely set your mind to, but a biological impulse is something that's not. It almost seems like it's not a choice to make it. So maybe a biological impulse.
Okay. And the last question is, what kind of treatment approach do you think will be most effective? Medical, psychological, behavioral, or combination of each one?
I think it'll definitely be a combination, but psychological would probably be the most important one. Medically, like if you're addicted to drugs, getting off those drugs and getting healthy is good. And you can have some medical help getting off those drugs, but psychologically you need to like rewire the way you think and to get your mind away from that. So
okay. That's it. Thank you so much, Nolan, for this interview, and we're gonna keep in touch. Bye. Hi, here is my second interview, Cutter Shipman.
Hello.
Okay, are you ready for these questions of drug addiction?
Yeah.
Okay, so the first question is, how much responsibility do you think individuals have over their addictive behaviors?
I feel like most of the time it's 100% the individual's responsibility, and also like getting help from other people is okay, but at the end of the day, it's you that is making the decision and controlling yourself.
Okay. Do you believe environment plays a major role in addiction? In what ways?
Yeah, I think so, because like your environment, if you're around other people that are doing like the thing you're addicted to, then it definitely does not help, because you're around it all the time and everyone you know is doing that thing and it's not helping at all. So if you surround yourself with people that are actually trying to help you and not harming you, then they definitely help.
Okay. What do you think is harder to change? A belief, a habit, or a biological impulse?
I would say a biological impulse, just because it's like that word. It seems like it would be like something that you like have to do, or but belief would definitely be the second hardest, because something that you like convince yourself that is true, but definitely a biological impulse.
Okay. And last question is, what kind of treatment approach do you think will be most effective? Medical, psychological, behavioral, or combination?
Probably combination, but psychological probably the most effective treatment, just trying to figure things out mentally. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Cutter, for being part of this interview, and we're gonna see you later.
While no singular study or interview can solve the complex issue of addiction, We hope that tonight's coverage has helped you stay informed on the latest. Thank you for tuning in to CNN. Until next time, good night.